Hello and welcome to the Alcohol Recovery Show, where we discuss practical, actionable steps for anyone who wants to achieve their dream of getting and staying well, happy and free from any form of alcohol dependence. Hello and a warm welcome to the Alcohol Recovery Show. I'm Antonia Ryan and I'm really glad you're here. And today we're exploring a question that many people ask. What does addiction actually do to the brain? Perhaps you've wondered why someone can desperately want to stop drinking and yet find themselves reaching for another drink. Maybe you've even experienced this yourself and you've wondered, why can't I just use willpower? For many years, addiction was seen as a moral failing or a lack of character, but today, thankfully, science tells us something very different. And today, I want to reassure you with this simple message. Addiction does change the brain, but the brain can heal. And that second part's incredibly important. So let's begin. Now, I want you to use your imagination. Imagine your brain as a beautiful woodland. Every thought, feeling and habit creates little pathways through the trees. And the more often you walk a particular path, the wider and easier it becomes. Eventually, what started as a tiny footpath becomes a well-worn track. And then, perhaps a country lane. Eventually, over time, it might even become a motorway, and that's exactly how habits form. And unfortunately, addiction creates one of the biggest motorways of all. Let's begin with dopamine. Many people call dopamine the pleasure chemical, but that's only partly true. Dopamine is actually much more about motivation. It tells the brain, this is important, remember this, and do it again. Normally, dopamine is released when we do healthy things, such as eating good food, having a laugh with our friends, exercising, listening to music, helping somebody, spending time in nature. Our brains have evolved to reward behaviours that help us survive and connect. But alcohol changes that system dramatically. Instead of a gentle rise in dopamine, alcohol can produce a much larger surge. The brain learns incredibly quickly. It begins to believe alcohol equals relief. Alcohol equals reward. Alcohol equals survival. The brain starts placing alcohol at the top of its priority list. And over time, something else happens. The brain tries to keep everything in balance. When it's repeatedly flooded with dopamine, it adapts. And it reduces its sensitivity. It's almost as if the brain says, there's too much stimulation, I need to turn the volume down. And the result? The same amount of alcohol no longer produces the same effect. And this is called tolerance. That's when people find they need more alcohol to relax, more alcohol to socialise, and then more alcohol simply to feel normal. At the same time, ordinary life starts to feel strangely flat. The things that once brought joy don't seem quite as enjoyable anymore. A walk feels ordinary. A family meal feels dull. Even hobbies lose some of their sparkle. And this isn't because we've become lazy or selfish. It's because the brain's reward system has been recalibrated. Now let's talk about another part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. This sits just behind your forehead and it's sometimes described as the brain's CEO. It's responsible for planning, decision-making, judgment, self-control. It's the part that says, I'm not going to have a drink tonight, or think about how you will feel tomorrow, or this isn't a good idea. As addiction develops, this part of the brain becomes less effective. Meanwhile, the emotional, survival-driven parts of the brain become louder. It's rather like having a wise adult whispering quietly while a frightened toddler is shouting through a loudspeaker. Guess which one you're going to hear first? This helps explain why intelligent, caring, and successful people can continue drinking despite knowing the consequences. Knowledge alone isn't enough. The brain circuits involved in decision making have been altered. And then we come to stress. One of the biggest surprises for many people is this. Eventually, alcohol often stops making people feel good. Instead, it simply helps them to feel less bad. The brain's stress systems become overactive. Without alcohol, people may experience anxiety, restlessness, poor sleep, low mood, irritability. They believe alcohol is solving the problem. In reality, it's often relieving symptoms that alcohol itself has helped to create. It's a vicious cycle. Another fascinating part of addiction involves memory. Our brains are brilliant at forming associations. So if you've spent years drinking while watching football or sitting in the garden or cooking dinner, your brain links those situations with alcohol. And that's why cravings can suddenly appear. It could be a smell, a song, a pub sign, a Friday afternoon. Even an emotion like loneliness or celebration can switch on those old brain pathways. So the craving isn't a sign that you failed, it's your brain remembering what it once believed kept you safe. Now for the hopeful news. The brain is remarkably adaptable. Scientists call this neuroplasticity. It simply means the brain can change throughout our lives. Every day you stay alcohol-free, you're strengthening new pathways. Sleep begins to improve, concentration returns, your emotions become steadier, your reward system slowly wakes up again. One day you notice that you've genuinely enjoyed your morning cup of coffee. Another day you laugh from your belly, or a walk by the sea suddenly feels beautiful again. Music gives you goosebumps, and these moments aren't small. They're signs of healing. So people might ask, will my brain ever recover? For many people, yes, often far more than they imagine. Recovery isn't usually instant though. Some improvements happen within weeks, others continue for months and even years. Healing isn't always linear. There will be good days, flat days, difficult days. But underneath it all, your brain is quietly rebuilding itself. So to return to the image of the woodland, for many years alcohol carved a huge motorway through the forest. Recovery doesn't bulldoze that motorway overnight. Instead, every sober choice creates a new path. At first, it's tiny, barely visible. Walking it feels difficult. But every time you choose connection instead of isolation, rest instead of escape, a meeting instead of a drink, mindfulness instead of panic, you walk that new path again. And eventually it becomes a lane, a road, and then one day the easiest route your brain knows. And that's what recovery really is. It's not simply giving something up, it's building something new. So if you're listening today and you're struggling, please remember this. Your brain has adapted to repeated alcohol exposure exactly as human brains are designed to adapt. The good news is that the same brain that learned addiction can also learn recovery. One day at a time, one decision at a time. one new pathway at a time. Thank you so much for listening today. And if today's episode has encouraged you, please share it with someone who might need a little hope today. And until next time, take gentle care of yourself. And remember, recovery isn't just about stopping drinking. It's about helping your brain rediscover the person you were always capable of becoming. Thanks so much for being here. Bye for now. Bye. Bye.